Hello, welcome to Good Money Moves, the show where we share financial tips and advice to help you feel financially empowered. My name is Jenna Tauble, and with me today is Cesar Cortez, our AVP of Risk Management here at First Alliance Credit Union, and we are digging into a very important topic today, and that is identity theft. Cesar, before we dig into this, share a little bit about yourself and your role here at the credit union for our listeners.
Well, hello everyone. As Jenna said, my name is Cesar, and I'm the AVP of Risk Management. Under my role of responsibility, I oversee fraud management. I oversee make sure that the credit union is compliant with all laws and regulations. I make sure that we have an adequate emergency preparedness plan, and
yeah, you keep us on track. Yeah. That's what you do. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Cesar. Let's just start at the most basic level. What is identity theft?
Identity theft at the most basic level is somebody using your information without your knowledge. And they could use this information to either open banking accounts, open car loans, student loans, medical services. They could even file fraudulent tax returns on your behalf.
So it could do a lot of damage.
Absolutely.
To you. So how does this happen?
You know what? One of the things that as I was thinking about this podcast is, it's most likely than not that your information is already in the world out there somewhere. You know, There's been a lot of data breaches. AT&T, for example, last year they exposed over 75 million accounts. Mm-hmm. Equifax, for example, they had over 147 million instances. So it's most likely than not that your information has been exposed, whether it's through a data breach or through false websites, phishing, what's called phishing, vishing, for example. Even using public Wi-Fi can expose your information. So there's a lot of ways. There are bad actors out there that it's their career to go out and identify this information or collect this information, and they know exactly what to do with it.
Yeah. So what is maybe some of the bigger warning signs that somebody should be aware of if their identity has been stolen? How would they know?
It's difficult to know. According to the Federal Trade Commission, they have to see who handles all cases of identity theft for the federal government. It could take up to 3 months to know that your identity has been stolen. So, wow. One of the ways that you can find out is a significant drop in your credit score. Mm-hmm. It's one way. In reviewing your credit card statements or bank statements, sometimes you could identify some false information there. Or even, like I said earlier, if you go out to file your taxes and you find that somebody has already filed your taxes, that's a way that you could detect that your identity has been stolen. Interesting.
So you mentioned that your credit score could drop significantly, and I'm assuming that's because they've opened up credit cards under your name.
Absolutely.
Or even maybe other financial accounts in other places that you just haven't even been aware of.
Yes, there's people that have been even mortgages under the name that they didn't even know about. So
yeah, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So you kind of alluded to that sometimes this stuff happens without your knowledge, and it's through things like bigger data breaches, or even using just a simple website and maybe giving somebody your financial information without even realizing you're on a bad actor's site.
That's right.
So can you talk just a little bit more about how they go about stealing that? You also mentioned phishing and vishing. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
A few different ways that you mentioned right now. So data breaches, for example, it's when bad actors go and they hack a company's system and they get what's called personal identifiable information, so that it can include your name, date of birth, driver's license, social security number, all that stuff could be collected. Phishing and vishing is when they send links like via text or emails, and they get you to click on those links, and it'll collect information either through your computer or you input information in there that goes to a bad actor.
Sure.
When you go into public places and you use those public Wi-Fis, that allows bad actors to go access your systems, whether it's your phone or your laptop, it's a way that they could get in there and hack your personal information as well.
Interesting. If only these people would put this much effort into like bringing good into the world. Sometimes
Absolutely.
It's like how I feel about all of this.
That's the way that I see it. It's like it's these people's careers to go out and try to get this information and extract the most that they can out of it.
Yeah.
It's very scary.
It is so scary. So, I mean, let's maybe talk then, since sometimes this is just so much outside of your control, but what are some steps that you can take to protect yourself from some of these things happening to you?
Sure. There's some steps that we could take. One of the ones that I recommend highly is putting a freeze on your credit, for example. It's a very easy way, and you could do it at the click of a button or a phone call. It's an easy step to, if you're not going to be using your credit anytime soon, go ahead and place a freeze on it. Another way that you could do is you get the annual credit monitoring for free. So you could go and download that and review and make sure that everything on your credit report is what it's supposed to be. Also, something as easy as reviewing your bank statements on a monthly basis. You get them every month, review it, make sure that there's no unusual charges. Sometimes what bad actors will do is they'll charge a little bit at a time where it's not even noticeable. They'll make a $50 charge, for example, and then over a course of time, it really adds up.
Yeah.
This morning I woke up and I had a notification and an alert on my phone that there was a purchase for $1.50 at 2:00 in the morning. And I know I wasn't up at 2:00 in the morning, much less making any purchases, So I went immediately and I blocked my card right away. So what happens is that sometimes they'll go out and they'll make test transactions for purchases on your card. And then once they identify that the card is good and legitimate and working, they'll go out to Best Buy and Target and Walmart and then start making those larger purchases for thousands of dollars.
Wow. And that's so sneaky that they would do those smaller purchases, because if you don't have some kind of transaction alert like we have with our mobile banking app with the My Cards tool where you can turn your card off to protect it.
Sure.
You would never know, or even if you were checking your account, you might not think twice about $1.50 here or there, especially when you have so many different subscription services and things running maybe on your account all the time, and you have some of those smaller transactions. So that's like so sneaky.
Super sneaky. You know what? One of the things that they do is like, when there's a data breach and the companies notify you that there's been a data breach, and they say like, okay, we're going to give you a year worth of identity monitoring. These actors know that, so they'll wait a year, sit on that information before they go out and use it. So it's very important for us to stay vigilant, to stay active and proactive and protecting all of our personal identifiable. I keep on saying personal identifiable information.
I want to back up just a second to something that you mentioned just a few minutes ago, and that was putting a freeze on your credit profile. Yes. Is that something where you have to go to each one of the 3 main credit bureaus and put a freeze, or is there a place you just go and it freezes all of them?
There's a way of doing it. So if you're going to put a freeze, you have to go out and go individually.
Okay.
However, if you detect that there's been fraud on your credit, as long as you notify one of the credit bureaus, they'll reach out to the other 2 and they'll do it on your behalf.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about some other ways that you can protect yourself. And one of the things that we're always told here at the credit union, even just internally, is have really strong passwords.
Absolutely.
So how does that help protect your information? Is there other little things people can be doing to help really protect their information when they are, using all these different websites, and you're logging into all these different places and you're using your card all over the place for all these different, websites? What can you do just on a day-to-day basis to be a little bit more proactive in protecting yourself that way?
It's really important to have strong passwords. Don't just use your pet's name and number 1 besides it. Try to use a combination of a password. Phrases are even better, and a combination of uppercase and lowercase in combination with special characters and numbers. Those are the best ones. So try to make it difficult for people to guess. And one way of maintaining those passwords is having a password manager. So usually you could pay for that type of services, but it'll allow you to maintain all your passwords in one centralized system and then have one master password. Okay. And that's an easy way of protecting your passwords. It's very difficult with the amount of passwords that we need on a daily basis, it's very difficult to maintain them. So that's one recommendation that I would recommend. Another thing is a lot of people hate two-factor authentication, but that is a strong control to protect against identity theft.
Yeah.
Learn to accept that and learn how to use that and know that that's for your personal protection. And also don't ever share that information.
Yes.
That's where a lot of our fraud happens within our credit union, is when members go out and they trust people that they shouldn't be trusting, and they give them these multi-factor authentications or password or login credentials. And that's where most of the fraud happens.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We would never, if you're calling the credit union, we would never ask you for
Absolutely.
that code that's being sent to you. We have no reason to know that. So if somebody's asking for that, hang up immediately and do not give it to them.
Yes.
That actually kind of brings me to my next question. And let's say you realize your identity has been stolen in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. What is the first step that someone should take when they realize that's happened? Who do they contact? What do they do?
Sure. Most likely the reason that happened is because your credit hasn't been frozen. So go out and freeze your credit, pull up that credit report, and go out to the Federal Trade Commission, that website. They have a theft. That's who you report it to. So you go up to the FTC website and make that report. I would also recommend filing a police report. Perhaps local law enforcement will not be able to do anything, but at least you have that document that you could go out to companies and say, like,
sure.
Hey, I had this fraud against me. Let's work on a way of resolving it. It's very scary. According to the FTC, they say it takes about 6 months and about 200 hours to recover from an identity theft. So
it's like a full-time job.
Absolutely, yes, and it's difficult to recover financially. It takes a lot of steps, and some people even have to reach out to their family, because they have no other means of getting the money.
Sure. Wow. So, at what point should they contact the credit union? If if they think their accounts have been breached, and what can we do to help our members if they're in that situation? The credit union is
a strong resources. I mean, I am very proud to say that we're knowledgeable and know what to do. So we could at least, if we can't, we can at least give advice and tell you where to go and what steps to take. So we're going to make sure that your accounts are protected at the credit union, and then we're also going to give advice on what to do moving forward.
Sure, that's awesome. Yes. So what are maybe some of the best ways to proactively monitor your accounts to watch for things like fraud and identity theft that are happening?
Signing up for those alerts, those purchase alerts, like I said, and make sure that you identify all the ones that you made. Reviewing your bank statements is really important. I know that I've been guilty of getting them and then you just kind of throw them in the mail, but just opening them up and review them, giving them a glance, make sure that your balances are correct and that the purchases on there are legitimate purchases. And if you see anything, pay attention to those red flags. If you see anything that calls your attention, even if it's like that $1.50 purchase that I mentioned earlier, take steps, block your card, call your institution, find out what it was for.
Yeah. So let's say you didn't catch some of those fraudulent purchases on your card right away. Is there any steps, once you do realize that those have happened, is there a certain amount of time in which you can contact the credit union and maybe have those refunded to you, or talk to me about what that looks like, the recovery of that.
Right. So in my job, in my role under my umbrella, we're not only protecting the credit union, we're also protecting members as well. So we have systems that alert us of unusual activity. So mostly everybody, they have, their regular purchases. And so when they go outside of that, it'll alert us, and then we'll review for that. We'll review those alerts to make sure that those are legitimate purchases. We reach out to members. One of the things that, as you mentioned earlier, to be careful is we will never ask for your PIN numbers, or we will never ask for the security codes on the back of your cards. If you ever get a call that's suspicious, like you said, immediately hang up and call that number on the back of your debit card, or go into your local branch. Other people other institutions that will never call you, the IRS, FBI, all these companies, they generally don't reach out to you. Yeah. So just stay vigilant would be my number one advice for that.
Yeah, that's great that you bring that up. And another one that I've been getting a lot, and I know a lot of others were, especially over the holidays, was like, oh, your package wasn't delivered. Click here and like enter your information to see where your package is at. And if you followed through with that, well, it would be fraud, and now they have all of that information that you just gave them, and possibly even your credit information, all of that. It's really scary how tricky these scams are that can steal your identity so quickly if you're not being vigilant to your, to your point.
And they're getting so good at it, aren't they? I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and it's some guy that makes these elaborate tables, right? And so a member, not a member, a client of theirs thought that they were making the purchase, so they mimicked the website exactly how it was, but they added an S at the end of the website name.
Sure.
And so it looked just exactly like the website. So this person went out and bought an $18,000 table, and it wasn't even to them,
Oh
so,
my gosh. It's hard to spot sometimes. So if this is something that's happened to you, you shouldn't feel bad about it or be afraid to reach out for help, because it does happen, and it happens so easily. And to your point, here at the credit union, even though we may not be able to fix everything that happened, we can help point you in the right direction and be kind of somebody to hold your hand through it along the way, to try to help kind of recover your information or whatever, situations happen.
Yes. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's most likely than not that your information has been exposed. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the other day I was on Google, and it said that 8 of my passwords had been compromised.
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot of passwords. And I pride myself on having good passwords and, being vigilant and stuff like that. And so that was scary.
Yeah.
And like you said, those texts, the emails, they are legit. They're really good. I don't order often, and that's how I catch those UPS emails. But I could see how people could, fall prey to them.
Especially if you're somebody who does order a lot of things online, or you are using UPS a lot or something. It would be really easy to just click, oh no, like what's going on, and then not realize what happened until you've already given them your information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're starting to come up on the end of our episode here. Is there any other maybe things that we haven't talked about that you want our listeners to know when it comes to protecting themselves from identity theft and falling victim to scams and fraud?
We actually covered a lot.
We did cover a lot.
I'm not sure what else I would be able to say. Just be careful with the websites. Be careful on where you click and anything like that. And the biggest advice I could give is, like I said earlier, stay vigilant. Take those extra steps on the forefront. Be proactive. Because that 200 hours, that's a long time to recover.
It's a lot of time. It's a ton of time. Well, thank you so much, Cesar, for being here. This was a ton of information, and I know that if we sat here longer, we would have so much more to talk about, because this is a huge topic, and it touches a lot of different areas. But thank you so much for being here and for listening today. This has been Good Money Moves, and before you leave, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you want to learn more about the topics that we've been talking about today, visit our website at firstalliancecu.com. And until then, stay financially empowered.